U.S. homelessness hits record high in 2024. Today on Here's the Scoop. Today's article is from the BBC, and guys, it just seems like it's gone from bad to worse. Okay, so the article says the U.S. homeless population increased by more than 18% in a year, driven by high housing costs, natural disasters, and a spike in migration to large cities, government officials said. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, said Friday that more than 770,000 people were in shelters, temporary housing, or had no shelter, according to a survey carried out one night in January 2024. Hey there. Thanks for clicking on the video. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell for notifications. Now, let's get back to the scoop. The numbers follows a 12% increase the previous year and is the highest since the federal government began an annual count of the homeless population in 2007. So they've only been counting the homeless since 2007, okay? The figure is likely an undercount. 100% it's definitely an undercount, as it does not include people temporarily staying with family and friends. Authorities caution that the data is nearly a year old and that both rents and the situation at the U.S. border have changed since the survey was carried out. Family homelessness overall rose 39% from the year before and more than doubled in 13 places that said that they have been affected by migration. Wow. That was in contrast to the more than 370 other local areas that did not report being affected by migration, where family homelessness rose less than 8% on average. Children under 18 experienced the biggest increase, with nearly 150,000 homeless on the night of the survey. There was a 6% increase in the homeless population aged 65 or older. There were also some positive trends noted in the report. Homelessness among military veterans fell 8%. Well, that's good. Hopefully they're not dead, and that's not why it not didn't fall, because let's be honest. But anyways, continuing a years long decline, and some cities were able to get homeless residents off the streets. Los Angeles, which has some of the highest housing costs in the country, saw its homeless population shrink by 5%, the first decline in 7 years, HUD officials said. So I would like to know where these people went. Did they go to Palmdale? Did they go to Lancaster? Because that's where they've been pushing people out. Did they go to Skid City? Did they die? How is Los Angeles's homeless population shrinking by 5%? I really would like to know that. Just if you know, please let me know in the comments, because I don't believe it. I'm sorry. The number of homeless people in Dallas fell 16% over 2 years, and Chester County near Philadelphia in Pennsylvania registered a 60% decrease over 5 years due to legal and education programs, increasing affordable housing and homelessness prevention efforts aimed at migrant workers, officials said. Okay, so they're helping, I guess, the migrants, so they're not homeless. Some local authorities said an increasing number of asylum seekers resulted in higher figures, which would make sense. But I also think it's just a lot of Americans who just can't afford their rent, to be honest, and they just got kicked out. In recent years, record numbers have attempted to enter the U.S., and starting in late 2022, Republican governors in Texas and Florida sent tens of thousands of migrants to Democrat controlled cities such as New York, Chicago, and Denver, where many were housed in temporary shelters. The report noted that unlawful crossings at the U.S. border have dropped more than 60% since January's homelessness tally, and encounters at the border itself are at their lowest level since July 2020. Authorities in several major cities have begun closing migrant shelters. This figure might be true about the 60%, because the BBC usually likes to talk crap about America. So if they're saying it's 60% drop, it might be, because if it wasn't, they probably want to gloat on that. I'm just, this is how the BBC does. I've read many articles from them offline. The report also noted that the survey was taken after a period of rent spikes and that rents are flat or even down in many cities since January. Where? I would like to know where, because they're not flat and we're down in Florida. So please let us know where. If this is you, and if your city the rent has gone down, let me know in the comments what city and what state. Natural disasters were another factor driving the high numbers. The count included more than 5,200 people who were sleeping in emergency shelters in Hawaii after devastating fires in Maui in August 2023. So guys, let me know what you think about this. Do you think that there's any merit to what this article is saying from your visual perspective of what you're seeing in your cities. Is there any merit to this, right? Are you seeing, a record high, or do you feel like it's a record low? They said in this article that some places it's been lower, right? Like they've reduced their homelessness population somehow, some way, right? We don't really know how, totally, but, except for the veterans. But for the regular people that aren't veterans, we don't know how their populations have reduced. But do you see a reduce in homelessness where you live, right? Or do you just see like, okay, it's a record high, and who are you seeing that's homeless? Is it the migrants, or is it Americans, or is it both? Who are you seeing in your city that's homeless the most? Are you seeing an uptick in families that are homeless? I just think it's really, really sad. And, the article did mention, homelessness is not just you sleeping on the actual physical street, it's you also sleeping in your car, it's you sleeping in your RV or your van, it's also you sleeping on your friend's couch, or, bumming it off somebody, a friend or something, a family member or something like that. So just because you're not on the actual street doesn't mean that you're not homeless, right? So a lot of people, they can't afford the rent. That's really, I feel like, the number one reason why people are homeless now, right? Because they can't afford the rent. Then there's also the other population of homelessness that are on drugs, or they're mentally incapacitated somehow, right? There's those people as well, but a lot of people, more and more, are just normal people that just couldn't afford the rent, right? Or they're working two, three jobs and they still can't afford the rent, and they're just living in their car, or they're deciding to save money. I remember hearing about a story in Silicon Valley, people making $100,000 a year living in the back of a truck because they just couldn't afford the rent in Silicon Valley, right? So there's many different kinds of levels to this homelessness situation in the US. Let me know what you're seeing in your city, how bad it is in your city, or if your city is doing something about it. Let us know in the comments so we can all see what's going on around the US. And until next time.